Hey, Hockey World. How are you? Sorry. Welcome to the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. Russ, why don't you start us off with what you got this morning?
All right.
Afternoon, whatever it is.
Yeah, it's close.
Call it afternoon. Still coming to you from the bathroom.
Hold on.
This is the last day I've been promised. The last day I'll have to do this. So
This got ruined.
This show is in the toilet already.
What is that?
We'll just shut it off, whatever the hell it is.
what's happening?
No, I got it. There we go. I don't know how this happened, but it something else. Siri put something else on my phone.
You've been invaded by Russian bots.
No, but I had something queued up, and it's like, why didn't she just play that? All right. We have gotten rid of the Wilpons. It just has to be approved. The Mets have new ownership, and there's 14 billion reasons why I'm happy today.
Okay, let's do it this way because arguably I think that the Wilpons might be the least popular ownership since the O'Malleys took the Dodgers out of Brooklyn.
No, I would say they're third. I would say
in New York. In New York,
I'd say M. Donald Grant was the first dark age of New York sports after O'Malley. So I would say it's the third. But this is, and again, people want to say, well, it wasn't the dark ages. We got to the World Series. It's like, yeah, you know what? Nobody really thought they were winning that World Series, but yes, they got there. If you want to count that as good over their time of their ownership, I don't. And so I'm glad they're out. I'm glad they're out for a lot of reasons. It doesn't matter to me that Stephen Cohen has the same last name, although it doesn't hurt.
You're going to get a job with the Mets. I know it.
But at the end of the day, I at least know going into the offseason, I might get a competent GM. I might get a competent front office. I might have competent money being spent on competent players, and that's going to make this team even better. And so that's all fans could ask for.
Okay, yes, but Jan, this is what I said to Russ yesterday. Being a big money owner does not guarantee quality ownership, and I think the situation in Buffalo with the Pagulas and the way that the Bills are much better because I think they hired a good GM and a good coach, but the Sabres have wallowed ever since they took over the franchise in 2011, and there are plenty of other examples of big money owners out there that threw money at the problem and it didn't result in wins. So I'm happy for Mets fans because they've been saddled with the Wilpons for years, but it's not a guarantee that they're going to all of a sudden win a World Series because they can throw money at the problem.
No, but
absolutely. Look at the dichotomy at MSG, right? You have the Rangers that we think are run by competent individuals who know what they're doing, and Dolan is hands off, and you have the Knicks, and that's all I have to say is you have the Knicks, and we know what kind of a nightmare and dysfunctional organization that happens to be, and they happen to throw a lot of money at that team with very little success.
Russ, think about it this way, Jan. If the Mets just had Zach Wheeler this year, they'd be a playoff team.
You're preaching to the choir here because I was.
No, but that's what this ownership would have done, right?
Banging the drums last year to bring him back, right? So yeah, you can argue that it was Madoff. Again, that's a poor excuse at this point in time because that's kind of, I wouldn't say the ship has sailed, but the remediation that they had in terms of what to give back. They're also making money hand over fist on SNY to a certain extent that offsets a little bit of their losses. Now, granted, because of the real estate situation in New York, they're likely going to have to get out anyway because they just didn't have the funds anymore to be able to afford it. But look, Cohen doesn't, and no pun intended for Russ's last name, so not directed at him, but Cohen has his own warts. For those of us who follow the stock market, Cohen clearly is not necessarily crystal clear and crystal clean in terms of his hands not being dirty. There's issues, but what he will do is he'll uplift the analytics department. He'll uplift the competency in terms of the people he brings on board to run the team, and he won't be hindered by, this one's going to cost me $1, this one's going to cost me $2. I need to go with the cheaper option to save the money, as opposed to bringing in the people who hopefully will run the ship rightly and bolstering the front office. Look, you're a Yankee fan, Mike. You know, just because you've thrown money at it doesn't necessarily mean you've always had success. You didn't have success until you actually had Gene Michael. Start with your farm system and let guys mature. The Mets have had guys like that, but unfortunately, they made the trade to get Wheeler. Now they let him go because they didn't think it was worth the money or didn't think it was worth the term. Yet they turned around and spent the money he's making this year on two guys that have been horrific.
And in the last 19 years, actually the last 20 years, the Yankees have won one World Series when they went away from just the core and started sprinkling the core with big money guys. But it's pretty sad, just to end this, it's pretty sad that when Woody Johnson and Dolan are not amongst the three worst ownership groups in New York City history,
Sure.
that it's the O'Malleys, that it's the Wilpons, and who'd you say, Grant?
Yeah, but Donald Grant, I didn't consider him an owner, Russ. He was more of a GM that ran the team.
No, he was the owner. He ran things. He
wasn't the owner, but he ran things.
No, he did. He was the owner at one point. He was.
Yeah, but but Payson was the original owner.
But he was running things, and then he owned it. So it's his fingerprints all
him
over.
And Dick Young are the reason why Tom Seaver ended up leaving the Mets.
Yep.
There you go.
All right, Doc, we're ready.
Here we go. Let's do it, folks. Hello, Hockey World. It's Tuesday, September 15th, 2012.
Nope.
2020.
Oh, my God.
2012 is close, though.
I'm time-traveling Michael Agello, and I'd like to thank Rick Bonus for winning me $400 in my playoff hockey pool.
I'm Jay Levine, still pissed at the end result of the 2012 Eastern Conference Finals.
And for the chat room that claims I don't get anything right, Mike is winning this pool because of me. Because
No.
Yeah, because I told you to take Gurianov, and he's your leading goal scorer.
No, he's not my leading point getter.
He's your leading goal scorer.
If I didn't take Gurianov, I would have taken Pavelski or Radulov. So
sure you would have.
I'll buy you your beer.
Revisionist history by Mike. Time travel.
Oh, man, I was doing a lot of research today on various seasons to do for a story I'm working on, and that's why I ended up in 2012. Sorry about that. Yes, I'm back. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And we have a coming, we have a going today. Let's start with the coming. We have Pierre Laviolette is joining the Washington Capitals as a coach. We don't have to get too much into this. We got so much else to get into, but this is an interesting hiring. I mean, it's funny. The Laviolette Barry Trotz tree now has begun to like crisscross in all different ways because this is the second time Laviolette's taking over for basically Barry Trotz. I mean,
well, Caps fans can complain about Laviolette not having experience in the Metropolitan Division because what is he only coached half the teams in the Metro? But but see, this is the thing. When we talked about the list that was out there a few weeks ago about the top three candidates, and Boudreau was mentioned as a fourth possible, but it didn't seem realistic. And it was the three big names: Gallant, Babcock, and Laviolette. Laviolette stylistically made the most sense. He's an offensive coach. This is an offensive team. All the other ones have their positives, and I think, especially with Babcock, a lot of negatives, especially less than a year out from the firing in Toronto. So looking at it, I think we all said Laviolette was the most realistic candidate, and I think it's a good hire. But he, as you know, Eck, with him in Philadelphia, with him with the Islanders, with him with Carolina and Nashville. He's got a window. It's 2 or 3 years before his message becomes stale.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question. But I look at it this way. When we heard those names, I knew it was going to be Laviolette simply because he will not bother Ovechkin. Funky, for some reason, doesn't think Ovechkin and Laviolette will get along. Ovechkin will do whatever he wants offensively, and Laviolette will cheer him on. Right. That's part of the job. The problem is in Nashville, there was some offensive talent, but not like they have in Washington. And Laviolette will really be able to take care of that. But he's also going to keep the other guys accountable that really made this Washington team underachieve under Reardon for the last couple of years. He's going to light a fire under their ass.
I think the window you're looking at is the same. Laviolette, 3-4 years tops. In a situation like this is the same as the Caps window. That is where the Caps are right now. So I think that in a way. I mean, the interesting thing is when he took over the last couple teams he's taken over, he hasn't taken over a team that's maybe this far along. Obviously, he's taken over a Stanley Cup champion team, that won a couple years ago. So this, and they're not that team anymore. But what I think a couple things I think will be interesting. I think he won't have an issue going, to Samsonov, as the guy. That's something Laviolette has never had problems with.
No, I don't think he'll have an issue with that.
He will definitely. They are an offensive team, but they won playing more defensively. If you remember, that's the one thing I think about with this team.
But I think they're past those days.
Yeah, no, they are. But if you put them into like a real big offensive, Like if you just unleash the offense with them, are they going to be able to, are they not going to just become like another like Leafs team, like that just gives, that just plays like all offense all the time.
Jan, I'll not like. Nobody will convince me. I'm sure that nobody will admit this, but I would hazard to guess that Ovechkin had some say in who this coach would be. Otherwise, he's got 1 year left in his contract. He could go to the KHL if they heard somebody he didn't like. But all he would have had to do was call Pavel Datsyuk and ask him about Babcock, and that would have told him no, thank you. But So what did you think of this, Jan? What did you think of Laviolette?
Look, I think, as you said, we had a couple of favorite candidates. We thought Laviolette, the window here is probably relatively short, at least as of right now. Laviolette fits with that narrative, right? 3 years. He comes in, and teams always have an initial blush when he comes onto a team. They usually last for a couple of years. As we said, the message starts to get a bit stale, or he starts to wear out his welcome. And given where the team is cap-wise and the minimal amount of cap room, the problems that existed in terms of resulted in their ouster against the Islanders aren't necessarily changing, right? So they have to make a decision on Holtby. They clearly need some improvement on the back line. If they ended up being able to incorporate some of the younger guys, of which they don't seem to have a ton of them, one obviously being Samsonov and one being Connor McMichael, if he can incorporate those two guys in the lineup, that would help them and enable them to spend a little money defensively. Yeah. But I do think we all agree that they need some kind of an uplift on the blue line for them to be able to get back to that kind of cup challenging status they had a couple of years ago.
Well, this is not the same Capitals team that we had. You're right, Janet. And also, this is not a team that it is going to be interesting to see how they react to the get up and go Laviolette coaching style, because this is not. I'm not going to say that they're lazy. But they had a propensity towards laziness at times this year in their play and their style, and that's something that won't fly at all with Laviolette. Now, whether or not these guys are whether or not the key players in this team who won a cup are willing to get back to work.
Well,
that's what we'll find out.
They're not going to have a choice.
Yeah, they're not going to have a choice, and that's where this will crash and burn or go one way or the other, right?
Russ, one of the things I think is a key for the Capitals over the last few years, their player development, especially on the blue line, has been hideous. They have resorted to going out at the deadline or before the deadline, adding Kempny, adding Nick Jensen, adding Radko Gudas, and Brendan Dillon this year, and guys like Madison Bowie, they traded away. Siegenthaler's not bad, but they've got a couple defensemen that they drafted. I think it was Alexiev in the first round a couple years ago. We thought Lucas Johansen might have been a player he really hasn't developed. They've got to develop these guys. Otherwise, they're going to keep spending bad money on depth defensemen. And now they're probably trying to get rid of Jensen or Kempny.
Yeah, but the thing is, a lot of times with Laviolette, like a guy like Johansen, who is mostly an offensive guy but is a good puck mover, could work out in his system. And again, for all the experts in the chat room, this guy's been to the Stanley Cup 3 times. He's won a cup once, and he's had 10 playoff appearances. When you're looking for a coach on the outside and you have veterans, I'm not a big fan of recycling guys either. But this is one of the top guys you can recycle. I mean, that Nashville situation's a disaster. It's been a disaster for a couple of years now, so I don't really even hold that against them, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it was a disaster made by Poile, made by some bad trades.
And you can't even put it all on Poile. A lot of it is the players too. It's the mix.
No, I think a lot of inconsistency among the players there.
Yeah.
That's
right. I'm not going to destroy Poile, but let's just say
injuries too. They definitely got hit by injuries, and also the Pekka situation.
But Ryan Johansen for Seth Jones doesn't look good.
No,
and it never. That one was one that
you could hang on him.
I never liked that one. But anyway, that's what we have. We have Laviolette. We're going to see what happens there. But let's move on to Dallas, who takes out Vegas. It's just Vegas is one of the best teams I've seen in a long time not make it to the Stanley Cup Finals. I really it's just astonishing to watch them play and see how they can skate and how they can move. And last night I thought, I wanted to say this so bad on the show yesterday, and I didn't. I was so mad at myself because Vegas, I thought they had to get back to their basics, which is speed and attacking and going after things, and not trying so hard to score perfect goals, but just like crashing at the net. And they started off perfectly. They started off exactly that way. That's what they were doing
till 10 minutes left to go in the third period. I mean, Jan said it in our group text yesterday. You know, what did Vegas do wrong? They really didn't do anything wrong. They dominated that game for the first 50 minutes. Then Ben gets that goal to make it 2-1. They get a power play. They tied the game. I don't think it was Leonard's fault. I don't think Leonard let a bad goal in. It's just Dallas had a habit in this series of parachuting in at the right time, playing really great for 5, 6, 7 minute stretches, getting enough goals to either get it to overtime or win the game. And then they held on for dear life. It's not the way that you draw it up, but it won.
So, I mean, in my opinion, it was two things. So in Vegas's view, it's whatever could go wrong, did go wrong, right? Yep. And for Dallas's view, they might be a team of destiny. We talked about it in the chat. The first goal, Radulov got away with a cross-check to the face that wasn't called. Intentional or unintentional. He knocked the guy down in the crease, knocked Schmidt down in the crease by hitting him in the face with a stick. On the second one, the stick definitely hit the puck before the skate, which probably should have negated the tripping penalty, and they called the tripping penalty on the third one. There is no way in any way, shape, or form that Wild Cloud was attempting to knock the puck out of play. He reached to knock it just to hit the puck, and granted, look, that is the rule, and it was a disadvantage for them. They got hurt by the fact that he literally was just trying to touch the puck to get it out of harm's way, went over the thing, penalty, Goryanov with a great shot, but look, Dallas took advantage of their opportunities, and then they ended up and Vegas. Look, the prior game, you had the broken stick that ended up leading to the goal also. So you make your own breaks, and Dallas took advantage of every opportunity.
The only egregious thing was definitely the Radulov penalty in the crease that wasn't called that led to the goal. That was egregious, but everything else, Dallas did what Jan and I said they've been doing, imposing their will. They decided to cycle really hard. And they saw that whatever reason Vegas was sagging, and for a couple of minutes Vegas couldn't get the puck, and that was what really Dallas has been able to do, at least against Vegas. Yeah. Even though Vegas is the better team, we all think that.
Yeah.
You know, but for a lot of people that want to draw up and say, well, you know, I knew Dallas was going to the cup or whatever. You didn't know that Jim Montgomery wouldn't be there. You didn't know that Ben Bishop wasn't going to be the goalie. Even when they started the return to play, it was always a preface that, well, if Ben Bishop gets back, they could make it there. Well, it's not Ben Bishop at all. So this is what always makes the Stanley Cup unique, is because weird things happen. And you know what? It's working with Khudobin. Clearly he's the guy. And right now, they're a hot team. They are.
Yeah, it's funny. I was listening to the third period and the overtime on the Dallas radio broadcast, and Daryl Ray, who's a really good color commentator, said, you know, after 2-1 goal, you could see basically the butthole of the Vegas Golden Knights collectively pucker. That they had lost all composure. It was 2-1, and they were playing scared. And then they took a penalty, and Dallas tied up the game and eventually won it in overtime. But they, you know, not to say you play fast and loose if you're down 3-1 in the series, but when you're up 2-0 in the third period and you have to play disciplined hockey, if you're playing nervous hockey, you're not going to win. And they played nervous hockey up a goal late in the third period, and Dallas had the luxury of being up 3-1, and they played fast and loose, and in a way, that's what got them the victory.
Right, they did, and they kept finding. I mean, of course, Vegas was getting gun shy. I mean, this whole series was just insane. You know, like and a lot of the playoffs for them have been that way. And at some point, you do have to blame yourself. You know, at some point, yeah, and in some way, yeah, your confidence has to get shot. I mean, they last night played like you said, like a perfect game for 50 minutes essentially. And looked like we're going to go to Game 6. I wasn't even thinking that game had a chance. It didn't even feel like there was a possibility that the series wasn't going to Game 6 in my mind.
Yeah, and especially think of how resilient the Stars are. They're down 1-0 going into the third period, and Vegas scores 15 seconds into the third period. Yeah. And, you know, they're up in the series, so they could very have easily said, "Okay, this is not our night. We're not going to win. Let's go. Yeah. Let's start fresh in Game 6." And they didn't quit. And they got that goal, and then again, Vegas had that reaction that okay, here we go again. They're gonna outplay us for 7 minutes and beat us, and they did.
Yeah, I mean,
we've seen that in the playoffs in other series too. I mean, you always see it. We saw with the Flyers and the Islanders, similar type stuff at times where the Islanders dominated most of the game, you know, and Flyers found their way to win it at the end. They are fascinating. I mean, they remind me Somebody asked me like a team you remind me of the playoffs. They kind of remind me of that Edmonton team that lost to Carolina back, way back in right after the lockout. In that that Edmonton team just had ways of winning too, and a fascinating stat about Dallas, which I know probably everyone's heard by now, but it is incredible that that they're a negative goal differential in the playoffs and they're going to the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, but like Mike said, they parachute in at the right time. They seem to be able to understand when they can definitely take over a game, whenever that is. And once that forecheck starts working, it does seem like Ben leads everything now, right? It does. It really seems like it's all going through Jamie Benn at the moment because he's being very physical, and that really helps. I mean, look, Sagan's blocking shots. We've talked about everybody buying in, but anytime we see Ben seemingly turning it up to another level in the game, it seems like the whole team follows, and that the Vegas just didn't have an answer for that at all.
And I have a bone to pick with the officiating last night, because let's just say this: if Tom Wilson had done what Ryan Reeves did in Game 5, Tom Wilson probably would have been suspended for a couple of the hits. The one on Klingberg, there was another one from behind with Blake Como that he laid out. But I mean, does Ryan Reeves get carte blanche to throw those kind of? I mean, they're up 1-0, and apparently when they're up in a game, Peter DeBoer tells Ryan Reeves to go out there and act like an ass, and he did, and he was affecting the game, and he was laying out some Dallas players. But can you do that kind of stuff like he did against Vancouver with the impunity? He should be. I mean, he was suspended only for one game for that hit. I mean, if the standard should be the same. If Tom Wilson does that and gets suspended for multiple games, then Ryan Reeves should be too.
Something else that I thought Bowness did right was when he was scratching Cogliano, I didn't understand it. And, you could see yesterday with that play from White Cloud, when Cogliano's got his speed going, you don't have a lot of time to make a play. And that's really what forced that error.
That was a great play by Cogliano. And
it's great. He's still got great speed, even at, while his age is advancing, and he forced that play. And White Cloud's a young defenseman, and that was really a big turning point in the game.
No, it was, because that when they take that penalty, you can see the Vegas nice.
Yeah, you saw the path.
Yeah, you could see where he was going, and they could tell that this thing was going to fall apart, and it was just, and it is bizarre. I mean, Vegas now, they have like this unbelievable winning percentage in the playoffs, like that among all NHL teams of all time, they're just better than anybody else by far. Granted, 3 seasons, but no one comes close to this. Like, it's astonishing. And yet, when they've been taken out, and of course they first get taken out in the Stanley Cup Finals. Last year they get taken out by Peter DeBoer, his San Jose Sharks, in like that crazy Game 7. This year they get taken out in this crazy game. It's like the way they go down, they go up and they go down. That they're like a blaze of glory type team. It's amazing how the extreme of this team is. We'll
find out whether this is the case in a couple weeks when we start free agency. But this is something I think we should watch, because we always say that the NHL is a copycat league. But I'll tell you this: when you look at the Dallas roster, and there's some really good young players that they've developed, like Guryanov, like Rupe Hintz, obviously the defenseman. But look at the lineup. Now they spent big money on Pavelski, but they signed Corey Perry to a 1-year deal. They have a Blake Como. They bring in Sekera after he's bought out from Edmonton. You are going to see, especially with the cap being flat and a lot of free agents out there, you are going to see, I'm going to write about this regarding the Leafs, you are going to see teams signing veterans to 1 or 2 year deals and sprinkle in those veterans. Instead of all the youth movements out there, I think teams will see it's valuable to, if you can get players at a certain price point. If you can get Corey Perry at $1.5 million, if you can get, I don't think Blake Combs was a bargain at $2.4 million, but
that's a little high for him.
But if you get veterans on a veteran minimum like $700,000 or under $1 million in this market, it's going to benefit you. I will bet you anything you're going to see a lot of teams do.
You're going to see a ton of 1-year deals. I will say that.
Yes.
This is going to be the summer of 1-year deals. Beyond these superstars, you're going to see. I guarantee you'll see twice as many 1-year deals as anything else combined.
What I find astonishing is simply because of the way the Jack Adams Award went this year. Nobody who was in the Jack Adams finalist has a chance at winning the cup. And
it's fascinating, isn't it?
And same for GMs. Jim Nill wasn't in for GM of the year either, right? But we talked about
No, he was. He was one of
was
the
he?
three.
Okay. I was
Right.
One of the three.
Right. No, it's true. It is. And we're going to have two Russian goalies in the Stanley Cup Finals. You know, like
what that tells you, Ak, is that the three nominees for the GM of the year, two of them that lost are the ones that likely are going to be in the Stanley Cup Final, and the guy that won is going to get eliminated tonight.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, you know, although let's talk about tonight's game. I'm not quite at the guaranteed thing, but I do feel this series goes longer.
I think the Islanders could extend it a game. I do.
I think that there is a lot. I mean, the Islanders have played some pretty good games in this series, but they haven't gotten anything for it. You know, and I feel like that Tampa. This is a pressure type spot for Tampa to be in tonight, in a way, because
I think
sitting there waiting to play them, and everybody's in the bubble. You know, they want to get to the Stanley Cup Finals. They want to start the Stanley Cup Finals. It's hard to. This is an easy situation for Tampa to look past the Islanders if they're not careful.
I think this series is similar to what happened in the West, in the sense that I don't think that where the series is right now is reflective of the balance in the series, because I think the Islanders have been good and good enough to win in 2 of the 4 games, but it's now 3-1.
Yeah.
So, but that being said, I think tonight, obviously, we don't know what the status will be a point. More than like, I would think that up 3-1, maybe they'll be conservative and not play him. But if you know, and Russ, there's not going to be much rest here, because the reports are that if the Lightning win, that the Stanley Cup Final starts on Thursday. They're gonna fast forward this.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, we have to be fair to the players. They want out of the bubble as quick as possible, and I don't blame them.
Yeah, they do.
So yeah, there's not going to be this usual time off or whatever, but I kind of like it. Like, I think we
got to get this going. We have drafts, and
there's a lot of momentum going right now with things. So I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, even having one night off. I mean, we've had very few nights off at all. Like, we're gonna have, you know, there's also a rumor that they're gonna play a back to back in the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yeah, which I mean that I don't know. I don't understand. You've got the building. You know, you're talking Thursday. If and this is if Tampa wins tonight, you're talking game 1 on Thursday, game 2 on Saturday. Why are you going to have back to back? Unless again, like Russ said, the teams want to get out of there so badly that they're willing to play.
I think that's why we do have. Here's some breaking news from a TV analyst, Robin Leonard. He said, "Well, this still sucks. The comments are entertaining, though. Going to be nice to see the family again in a few hours and to hear some yes, yes, yes on the TV later. The Island for the W tonight. Now time for a break. I'll check back in whenever we start up again. Stay safe." So he thinks the Islanders are going to win. Now, he did play for them, but
yeah,
I do think there's a chance. But I will tell you this. I think this game actually falls on Trotz, even more than the players, on who he plays, how the matchups are. I don't know if they have the last change or not. I'm not sure who the home team is in this.
They would not be
Tampa. Tampa's the home team.
Tampa. So I think the coaching is going to be really key in this game, because I don't think, you know, there have been games when, yes, things have gone wrong for the Islanders, like last game, and then Tampa steamrolls them. But then there's those other games where they're right in it for the whole game, and that's the kind of game they're going to have to play. It's easier said than done, because Tampa's going to want to, eliminate it. But again, get the first goal somehow. You get the first goal, at least you're going to make Tampa think. Although it didn't matter last night.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're going to need your big goal scorer, Matt Martin, to score early in the game.
Listen, you say what you want, Mike. I mean,
no, I'm just. Hey, it's not a dig on the Leafs. It's a dig on Mike Babcock not utilizing a guy who was a useful player for some ridiculous reason.
Listen, you're going to get Boomer Esiason after you. You keep ripping on Matt Martin.
I'm not ripping on Matt Martin. Matt Martin has played.
Boomer's a big guy. He's like 6'2".
I'm not ripping on Matt Martin.
Okay.
At all. He's a good buddy. He's my friend.
You don't want a mean father-in-law after you who used to be an athlete.
I'll just get Bruce Smith to come and sack his ass.
Oh,
yeah. The concept of them going to get out of the bubble is very real. Like, talking to players, that is definitely a case. And it is, and you can't blame them for that at all. And the concept more and more of talking to people over the last couple of days that the NHL will start play in their own buildings, in their own empty buildings is definitely, sounds like it's going to happen.
And
don't think we're going to see a quarantine unless things, of course, get terrible again.
Well, right, but if that's the case, and what they're more than likely going to do is follow the football baseball model, because they're going to have to quarantine in place. They're not going to be able to go out in the cities when they're traveling there. You go right to the hotel, right to the building, and then right back to the plant. Like that kind of stuff. I mean, right now, I'm as shocked as anyone that there have been no positive cases in the NFL so far, and it's really calmed down in baseball. So maybe
I just think that is fortunate because of everybody wearing masks and everything. But if we do get another wave,
yes,
they're going to be playing games in hot spots. They are.
Yes, they will.
And there's just going to be no way around it. Now, the part that you worry about, Ek, is them maybe getting it from the arena help, because they're going to be coming and going. There's going to be a certain amount of people that come in. Yes, they'll be tested and everything else, but you don't know what they're doing in their spare time, and they're certainly not going to be as careful as players. But that is going to be the worry, because it's not just once a week, Mike. See, that's the thing. I know once a week, so that may be their other saving grace there.
But there's no bigger hotspot than Orlando right now, and in Florida, and there's been no cases in the NBA, so it is possible to play multiple games like the NBA has during their playoff setup.
No, but the people who work in the hotel are staying in the hotel for the NBA. They're paying people to stay in. The NHL is not going to pay people.
No, but
to stay in the arenas 24/7.
But Major League Baseball and the NFL,
I know.
So you can take two things from both situations and say you can get away with this if people follow what needs to be followed. And like I said, I think I think everybody is right that I think the NHL still wants to start the season, if not December 1, then in the middle of December, because if they want to get 82 games, they're going to have to. They can't, if they start in January or start in late January, you're talking about a 60 to 65 game regular season, and that costs them money too. I think they want to get these games played, even if it's the start of the season, even if it's in front of no fans.
Look, I think Bill Daly's all pretty much told us it's starting in January without saying it's starting in January, right, Ek? I mean, he's mentioned it enough times now that I'm pretty sure that that's going to be the case. They just don't want to say it now, because why should they?
Yeah. I think they want to go. They want their own space a little bit too. Like I think that's another feeling on that too. I think you're going to see that happen. And I really think where they want to play this out is how the whole thing goes down in the fall, because you're not going to really know right away. So the worst thing would be to start one direction or the other. I mean, the worst thing would be to start with them playing in their own buildings and have this thing hit really hard. I mean, and if you do a quarantining type thing, that's another issue. And the bigger issue, I think, honestly, the big issue about January, in my opinion, is Canada. Like that's what I think that's really what they're thinking about in the January start is let's figure out the travel back and forth to the United States. They probably know something in terms of the fact that Canada's hoping that if things go well, by 2021 will be easier to move people across the borders.
I mean,
there's probably been some talks behind the scenes.
Well, I think what's reflective of that is the American Hockey League and the CHL, which has franchises in both the U.S. and Canada, that they're starting their seasons, at least they're starting their seasons in late December or January. And I don't think that they would be doing that if they were going to have the issue of being able to cross the border and quarantine. So, I really hope, and obviously it depends on what happens with the second wave. I'm hoping, as an American who covers the Leafs, that I can go up to my favorite city in Toronto for the first time, in December. It'd be 9 months since I've been up there, but I hope I'll be able to.
I think, and we have no way of knowing, but I just have a feeling that sometime in February, based on the second wave, if we have it, when it starts weakening, also based on what you just said, Mike, with these other leagues starting, like I could see the Canadian border crossing reopening sometime in February.
Yeah.
February.
Yeah, something like
for regular people, not for the players.
Yeah, but they would have to be giving teams essential status, Russ.
But they would. I think they would, because I think a month later they would give it for everybody.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's very possible. All right, so I wanted to talk a little bit about the today what I've been hearing a lot of talk, and that is we have this great Russian goalie thing that we've talked about. That we have a lot of the Russian goalie.
The latest of the great Russian goalies, yes.
Well, yeah, this is definitely a Russian goalie wave.
We're in a Russian goalie era right now. We are.
You look at Samsonov. We got these other goalies that aren't even playing. That I mean, these guys are good. Solid, really not just solid, but like top prospect goalies.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have this kid in the draft that's coming up now. And the feeling is, before we always said, how quickly would you pick a goalie in the first round this time around? How quickly would you do it? Like where would you pick this guy?
If I needed a goalie, I would take him wherever I was picking.
What was going on? Yeah, do you think
if I need a goalie, if my franchise needs a goalie, I am taking him wherever my pick lies.
Well, I mean, we've been advocating because I went through like the top 15 teams, right. And I think there were six or seven that could make a case for drafting Askarov with their first round pick, starting with Detroit at 4 and Ottawa at 5, because neither one have franchise goaltenders.
Right.
Neither one.
Right. And do you think the pressure will be greater on that because of what we've seen, because of this influx of Russian? I mean, this is that league. We've talked about this. I don't think
Yzerman will yield to the pressure. He's going to do what he thinks is best. I mean, if I were him, really, right now they have, Jonathan Bernier. They're probably going to sign themselves a stopgap veteran type guy to get through the next season. Either they're trading for a goaltender or they're drafting a goaltender. And if you're drafting Askarov, you're probably saying, Russ, 2 to 3, maybe 4 years before he's in the NHL?
I think he might be quicker. I think you might be in 2 years.
Yeah. So, he plays 2 years in the KHL, and then he comes over at age 20. And is Detroit going to – I don't think Detroit's going to be a playoff team by that point, but they're going to need a young goaltender to build around to play, to take on a role like Carter Hart in Philadelphia. I mean, I've only seen Askarov play in the World Junior, but from everything that I've read, he's in that Spencer Knight, Samsonov category as a future number one. And, if you go past, I mean, Ottawa doesn't have a number one. The Devils, if you believe in Blackwood, maybe the Buffalo Sabres, they have Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, who's a good prospect, but he's played 10 games in the American Hockey League. Then Nashville, I think Nashville needs a future goaltender. Carolina definitely does. Edmonton does, and Toronto does. So if he doesn't go 4 or 5, he's probably going to go in the top 10, and maybe one of those teams trades up.
I'm starting to hear people thinking like Toronto, teams like that, considering trading up to get this too. I mean,
it would shock me. I mean, he is the one goalie that stands above everybody else. Eric, we shouldn't leave out Pierre Kochikov, who was drafted in the second round by the Hurricanes. He's been playing in the KHL. He's really good too, and so he'll be part of that, Russian goalie pipeline.
We're all sitting back and remembering that last year, this time, we had the biggest goalie signing contract of all time in Bobrovsky. And Bobrovsky, granted, had a down year, but you're still looking at Bobrovsky's got a couple Vesenas, and I mean, this is a heck of a wave. And looking at, so I watched a lot of video of Askarov because I was curious too, like what his style was, like what he was like as a goalie. And then I went down a really fun rat hole. But first of all, let me tell you about the video. This kid's style is interesting. Like he's definitely a different looking player as far as goalies go. He's a lot lower in his stance than anybody in the NHL right now.
Khudobin's very low.
Khudobin's low, but that's probably the closest you could say. I agree with that. But he's got a lot of, but he has more of the aggressiveness of a Bobrovsky than that though.
I agree with that.
But he's not a player who's afraid to come out. Like the other night, I forget what goal it was. I forget what team it was. No, it was against the Islanders. Oh man, it was definitely, it was hard. It was a really terrible play by Varlamov, right?
Right.
Anyway, it was the first. It was the first goal. The goal right after the Islanders score. They had this alley-oop pass, and it was a great play and all that stuff. But there's no way that he shouldn't have been out and gotten the puck before he even got to the. It was like the player caught up to the puck.
Are you talking about the Blake Coleman goal?
Yes, thank you. I got another text from when we were here about a trade that's
fine.
Confusing me at the same time. I'm apologizing on that. So but the Blake Coleman goal. I mean, there's no way that Varlamov shouldn't have gotten to that puck before Coleman did. Like that it was just, Coleman gets to it within a couple feet of him.
First of all, Khudobin strikes me as more of a hybrid type of goaltender. Sometimes he stands up and sometimes he's flopping around. It's sort of like Tim Thomas in a way, but
he is a lot Tim Thomas type. He is.
I mean, Askarov, I think, is very like, I mean, he's physically gifted. I put him in sort of the Vasilevsky category, although I don't know if he's as flexible. He's
very athletic.
He's a little smaller, it looks like.
He's
a little smaller.
6'2", 176, so he grows another inch or so.
Right.
So
and he'll be the same as Vasilevsky.
And he's got some Hasek moves on him too, though. It's kind of fun. Like he's definitely an interesting goalie.
He does sprawl out there once in a while. There's no question about it.
He's got great reflexes and great instincts. You can see. I mean, as you know, which I've said, my favorite young goalie is Shesterkin, who is the same kind of thing. So it's just I'm curious about what it's going to take, or how many teams. Will a team like Toronto move up for this kid? Will they try to get up?
No, because they can't use him right away, so I don't think they would.
Right, but I do think that we can use sort of what happened in last year's draft as sort of a primer, because Spencer Knight went, I think, 10th, Russ.
That's right.
I think that's about like if Detroit took him or if Ottawa took him, I don't think it's a reach, because I think he's the best goalie in the draft, but it would be higher than I think he's ranked, and maybe those teams would trade down to pick him lower and get an extra draft pick.
I mean, here's how I honestly have it. I have Askarov ranked 9th in the draft, the 9th best player. And if it was a perfect world, I think that's probably true. But again, it's an imperfect world, because these teams need goalies, and how else are you going to get a franchise goalie? You may only get one crack at it. And so that could definitely, raise his value. And that's why we're talking. I mean, again, we also should be talking about Lucas Raymond. I have him ranked 7th, but he's gotten off to such a hot start. He could upset the apple cart here too. We're not used to a draft where guys can show us results of the next season before they actually get drafted. Remember, we're going to see a draft where players can't interview because they're actually playing.
This is like
never seen that.
This is like having the Stratomatic hockey draft that I have, that usually happens in mid to late October, when players have played 8 or 9 games in the NHL. Right. It's like, oh gee, I got to draft Brian Savage. Hot October.
I mean, I went through a list of goalies that were taken in the first round, and the most successful ones too. And
right.
It's just kind of, and some of the ones that bring us disasters. I mean, the most successful first round goalie has to be Marty Brodeur. He's and then you got Luongo, Grant Fuhr, Marc-Andre Fleury, of course, Carey Price,
Trevor Kidd.
Well, listen, I mean, Trevor Kidd's not a bad goalie. The idea is, a lot of times with these first round goalies, they were rushed in those days.
Yeah.
And some of them were on teams with lousy player development too. And we have to talk about that. We can't just say it's a failed pick.
Tom Barrasso.
Yeah, I found a guy named Rico. Remember Rico Helenius?
Yeah. He was
this guy who's drafted
for Tampa. Yeah,
in the first round in 2015. So just 5 years ago.
I'll tell you what the difference was with him. They looked at him, and he's Finnish, right?
Right.
And was part of the Finnish pipeline. Maybe the end of the Finnish pipeline, where all of a sudden those hot Finnish goalies were coming in, and he just wasn't one of them. Now, he did look good going into that draft, though. He did, and they did get burned on it.
He never really got a shot, and it's interesting. Like, I went through his history. Like, he ran up against. It was drafted in 2006. I'm sorry, wrong date on that, but 2006.
And he played in the World Juniors.
And that was actually the Team Finland World Championships in 2005 and 6 were what got him like such a high pick.
Right. Because that one I was there live, and I remember him doing well.
Eric, one game in his NHL career for the Tampa Bay Lightning, which is astonishing. Like, to me, like that.
Eric Fichaud.
One game he played against the Flyers. Actually.
But at least Fichaud had a decent career. He just wasn't a great goalie. That's all.
And so then
he wasn't a total bust, though. He did play.
But when you search him, the most interesting thing that comes up with him is in 2013-14, while playing for the Syracuse Crunch, he gets in an awesome goalie fight against Robin Leonard. So that's funny rat hole I'm going through this morning. I'm like, what the heck is that?
That's just Swedes hating Finns. I think that's all that's about.
That was great. It's just like one of those things, definitely just search
the tale as old as time right there.
Robin Leonard goalie fight. It's like hilarious. Just
if you ever interview a Swede or a Finn at World Junior time, it gets heated, man.
Oh yeah. No, there's no question.
It's serious.
Yeah, Russ, what I'd like to see is some of our Finnish writer friends and some of our Swedish writer friends at the draft next time, and whether they, after a few pops, will drop the gloves too. But
I think some of them might.
yes, I'm sure. But no, but yes, you can get a good goaltender, a great goaltender in the first round. Or you can get a great goaltender as a free agent, like Curtis Joseph or Eddie Belfour. So you can get him any place.
Well, Hudobin is like what, a 7th or 8th round pick or something like that.
Yeah, but he was the number 1 ranked European goalie. Like he did have a little bit.
Okay.
I remember writing about Hudobin at that time and saying, "Hey, he looks like a pretty good goalie." And then he got lost in the shuffle. And then we thought he's just a backup. And I can't say I still think he's a bona fide number 1, even though he's leading them to the Stanley Cup. Because we've seen weird things happen, and right now he's playing the best hockey he's ever played. So
you've seen, and that's another reason I go to the Edmonton Oilers. Or that team, you'll see who's it? Markkanen, right? Was it Markkanen, right? You see Markkanen?
Yeah,
but that was after injury. That was after their top 2 goalies got injured.
But he had this thing, but he had an incredible run and vanished. One of these players, we have seen this before, where our goalie can go on a crazy run.
Yeah,
I mean, I think Hudobin is better than that, and I really do like I say, he's one of my favorite goalies to watch. So, but yeah, I think the draft is going to be fascinating in a lot of ways. It always is fascinating in a lot of ways, but the goaltending thing with this kid is going to really be.
No, he could really upset the apple cart, and it could start as early as 4. I mean, again, if Detroit needs a lot of things, right? But Detroit does have money.
Vasilevsky in the first round.
Detroit does have money, right? I know, but they do have money. And so in the end, they really could get a goalie. I mean, the thing that they probably still need the most is if Jamie Drysdale's on the board, they probably should take him. I have him ranked 3rd. He's the best defenseman. At the end of the day, that is what they need the most help at. But, who knows if he'll be there at 4. If he is, I would take him.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing, the pivot in this draft is going to be 3, because everybody says that Ottawa right now is going to take a forward and a defenseman. And maybe they take Askarov, that could be in the mix. But if you're Ottawa and clearly the best defenseman is Drysdale, and you're thinking, okay, I can draft Drysdale at 5. Well, he might not be there if Detroit is going to take him at 4. So why wouldn't you take him at 3? And then you get the choice of whatever forward is, if it's Holtz or if it's Raymond or whoever at 5. I think that would be the way for Dorian to go.
Yeah, but I'll tell you why. Because I think Pierre Dorian already painted himself in the corner, because he pretty much said whoever we get at 3, he's going to play for our team next year. Right. And I can't guarantee you Jamie Drysdale's playing for a team next year.
But
I still think Stützle can, and I think that's the corner that he's painted himself in. Not that it's a bad pick, don't get me wrong, but I just think that he has got pressure from ownership to make sure whoever they draft with that first pick, they can mark it and start showing on the team.
That's the one advantage for Detroit, that I think we saw last year. They picked Mort Seider at 6, I believe. He was ranked by most lists in the teens or in the early 20s. But Russ and I saw at the combine and the way he played for Germany in the World Junior that his stock was really rising. And since basically Yzerman can do nothing wrong there and has carte blanche to do whatever he thinks is best, he reached, in the minds of some, for Seider at 6. He might do the same thing for Askarov at 4 if he thinks he's getting his franchise goaltender, and it's not going to matter. He's going to have to wait a couple years for some of these other young kids to come.
I would not be surprised at all if Yzerman did it.
No, I mean, it wouldn't shock me at all. But I'm just saying I wouldn't do it, because I feel like when it's like Seider's going to play this year. He looked pretty good in the AHL at the beginning of the year when I saw him. He was in preseason. I watched him. The coach liked him. Blashill liked him. He just didn't make the team, and that was the smart thing, right? But he's going to make the team. I think based on all these goalies being out there, it will be up to Yzerman to decide what his long-range plan is, because he's got a backup in Bernier. He might even extend Bernier at some point as being the backup. And so if he feels like his team's getting better quicker, he might not go for the goalie that he thinks could be the franchise guy. He might go for the more veteran guy to start, because there may be a point where ownership says to him, listen, I know, Steve, we have a long-range plan here, but we'd like to make the playoffs and make some money.
Yeah, Detroit's
you never know what that's going to work out in the equation.
Yeah, Detroit's a different scenario than Tampa that way.
Yeah.
Mob Talk Radio puts it in the chat. I think we should discuss this. The qualifying offers, clubs have until 5 p.m. on October 7th to submit qualifying offers to respective RFAs. The free agency, as we know, is starting the 9th. So we're talking 2 days before, whether teams walk away basically or let players test unrestricted free agency. So they have basically a 48-hour lead time, and this is going to put pressure on these players. I'll give you an example. Evan Rodriguez, who the Leafs traded for in the Kapanen deal. The qualifying offer for him, he made $2 million last year. I think he had like 20 some odd points. The qualifying offer would be 10% of a $2 million salary, which would be $2.2 million. There is no way Toronto is going to sign him for $2.2 million, but I think they do want him. So I think the pressure is that Dubas would go to his agent and say, we'll give you a 1-year deal for $1 million. If you want to test free agency, be my guest, but this is what we're offering you. And a lot of these RFAs might take that lower deal because of the flat cap. And this is going to be very common around the league. You're going to see teams walk away from players trying to get them on lower deals, but if it doesn't work, they're going to be UFAs, and that just makes the UFA market even more interesting.
Right, but they can't walk away until they come
by walk away,
right?
I mean not qualifying them.
No, I get it. But what you're saying is with that 48-hour period,
right,
they still can go back with that offer to the team, and then they have to decide whether they're walking away, right?
Correct. Okay. They have 48 hours basically before they hit UFA, and I think they could sign on October 9th at 12 noon. They would just choose to sign with the same team. But I think that the teams are saying, more than likely, most of these players, when the team goes to them and says, we'll offer you this, they're going to sign before the time but before 5 p.m. on October 7th. If they are not given the qualifying offer, more than likely they're going UFA. So I think those transactions will happen then maybe the 48 hours before the 5 p.m. deadline.
Right.
I agree. And you're going to see a lot of it. And you are going to see some guys that go UFA that you're going to be surprised at too. So it's listening to every GM talk right now. Everyone's in the same boat that no one has any idea how this is going to work, how this is going to happen.
But you could see some very prominent players, not like superstars, but very prominent players who have good careers that will possibly hit unrestricted free agency. The couple names that I heard along the way, Athanasiou in Edmonton, his qualifying offer is over $3 million. Yeah. They don't think that that's a good number, then they could just say, we're not qualifying you. We'll give you this. And if he doesn't like that, then he could go free agency. The other one is Brandon Montour with the Sabres. I don't buy that one because I think they could trade Montour because there are
I think so too.
A lot of teams out there looking for defensemen, but
I think that's not going to happen. But
and maybe teams would qualify him at offer him the 10%, but him and a guy like Colin Miller are two players that the Sabres might be willing to move.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be fun, guys. We'll be. It's all the time we got for today, though. We really do appreciate you guys all watching, and remember, you go to patreon.com/hockey to support the show. We'd always appreciate that, and enjoy the games tonight. Maybe tomorrow we'll be previewing the Stanley Cup Final. Who knows? I don't think so, though. I have a feeling we're not going to be, but we'll find out. We'll find out later.
I give the Islanders a really good chance to win this one.
I picked Tampa in 5, so I'm sticking with my prediction.
Yeah, no, you'd be right. Remember, folks, without the buzz, it's just hockey. We will.